Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to another morning forecast here by Adrian's Weather Forecast. This is going to be another morning update here on the incredibly strong and potentially major tornado outbreak and severe weather outbreak that will be happening today. Again, definitely going to be looking at the resemblance of the Easter outbreak exactly a week ago. We now have major updates on the SPC. We're going to be looking at very detailed models. We'll be looking at the lightning, the hail, the SCP and other things here. That's what we're going to be looking at today. Again, we're going to be seeing possibly maybe a triple upload today, maybe 2 more videos later in the early afternoon and later afternoon. We'll be seeing the severe weather really ramping up. I might even have to have a 4 or a quadruple upload, but I'm not sure. You guys let me know if you guys want a quadruple upload. Because again, this is really major, and again, we have incredibly huge updates. Everything here is new. Again, please share the channel to any friends or family. We need as many people to see this video so they get as much information and the most detailed information so they can prepare for the severe weather, because this can possibly be a little bit this Easter outbreak might be a little bit worse, but again, this is going to have really big supercells, strong wedge tornadoes, large hail, possibly tennis-sized hail, if not softball-sized hail, and possibly hurricane-force winds with these straight-line winds, which will definitely cause a lot of power outages and a ton of debris. So again, please share the channel. I'm not just saying that so I can get more subscribers. We really need as many people to get this information. Again, I'll be doing multiple more updates, so this won't be the only video. So also stay tuned for more videos. And if you are also new to the channel, be sure to subscribe again, especially if you want as many updates here as we get into this very active severe weather season. But again, without further ado, let's get in this video. So here we're going to be looking at the National Weather Service right here again. We already have a couple severe thunderstorm warnings in effect out here into Texas. This is where we'll start to see the severe weather. The worst of the severe weather today will be developing here with the next couple hours. But we have this very first strong band that's going to bring in some very strong, very heavy rain throughout northern Georgia, northern Alabama, and to the Carolinas, including Atlanta and Birmingham. Again, I'm actually getting affected by this very heavy rain as of right now. That first band that we've been talking about, that won't be producing supercells, or it shouldn't be producing supercells, but it's, again, still possibly we could maybe have 1 or 2 in some areas if the severe weather band is actually worse. So again, we actually have flash flood warnings out here into central Texas, central Alabama, and I believe it's for the Birmingham area. Yeah, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Sylacauga, you guys are just out, and then also Clanton, and then again, much of the southeast is actually under flash flood watches from all the way from the other side of the Mississippi River from Louisiana all the way up into southern South Carolina. So definitely millions that are going to be expecting incredibly heavy rain. Again, many people as well in the southeast already have wet soil, so this is why we're going to be seeing easily flash flooding, even if we don't have that much rain. And again, we're going to be seeing that very first thunderstorm here, this first band. Again, this is not the really producer of this incredibly heavy rain for today, or the extremely strong severe weather. This is going to be this first band that was developing earlier on in Louisiana and Mississippi last night, and this is now moved to the east into Georgia. Again, actually starting to get very heavy rain and getting towards that dark green. And it looks like we actually have some supercell right here that is actually now moving towards the Georgia border. That looked like we actually had a supercell there. It's very, very likely we actually had one there. And it looks like we have another couple supercells developing right here south of Birmingham. So again, what we looked at with the supercell composite parameter, the SCP, that didn't really show a chance for supercells developing this morning in Alabama and Georgia. But it looks like we actually had a supercell develop right here. I don't think we had a tornado there, but again, definitely seeing this really strong band. This is actually going to be very strong bands. It doesn't look like they're going to produce as many tornadoes. If it does, or really not going to be causing as much hail or as large. Again, very strong rain now heading towards the Atlanta area, heading towards again now the LaGrange area, Columbus. Again, definitely looks like we can possibly have a huge chance for some potential maybe rotation moving to the Georgia border. And again, we also have some very heavy rain now moving into now the Huntsville area, moving now north of Birmingham. So again, that's why we actually have these flash flood watches, of course, out in these areas, because we could possibly see up to around 3 inches to 4 inches in these areas out here in Georgia, as well with the Alabama area. So that's what we're looking at here at the National Weather Service. Now let's actually get into the SPC. So this is probably the biggest update of today, just like yesterday. And as you can tell, we now have this moderate risk extending out all the way as far east as Georgia and now as far west as Texas. So we now have 2 states that have been added to this moderate risk. And possibly the most significant is now Georgia. You guys are almost all the way to the South Carolina border in this moderate risk. So it's definitely a huge change. And that's all the way up into the far eastern Texas area. Just, of course, east of Tyler. It's like right on the border with Louisiana. So again, we have 2 major states. Of course, the Texas one's not too major as we don't have that many people living right on the border. And also, we have incredibly big updates with the slight and enhanced risk. The enhanced risk is now moving as well a lot more to the east and a lot more to the a lot more to the west and a lot more to the east. It's now as far east as North Carolina. We actually had that tip of North Carolina now under an enhanced risk, and also much of eastern South Carolina. And like I said yesterday, I said we should probably extend this slight chance a lot more to the north. And look, it does. I'm actually right on the border with a slight and a moderate risk. I'm actually in the slight chance now, but I'm like right on the border of it. So technically I'm in a level 2 now, which I really expected. And I really expect this to continue to move north because of these very strong bands we're looking at right now, of course. It's very strong bands. I really think people are underestimating this. I don't think these areas should be in a marginal when they're going to get incredibly heavy rain like this. And don't worry, this is, or not only this, but we're also going to be seeing these type of bands coming in tonight as well in the exact same areas now moving Atlanta and north of Atlanta. So that is why we should possibly have this enhanced risk also move a lot more to the north as well. So I think this enhanced risk should probably go all the way up to the Atlanta area. It actually was all the way, it was actually like right on the border with Atlanta, but it actually did extend out to the south. So again, definitely major updates, not just with the moderate and the enhanced, but also the slight chance. Also now moving now to more Arkansas and now Oklahoma. So again, major updates as this risk does move in different directions: west, south, north, and all that. And then the enhanced risk is getting closer to the Tallahassee area, but not quite yet. Oh, actually, yeah, the Tallahassee area has now been extended to the enhanced risk. I actually did not think that was going to happen, but I guess it really did extend this threat a lot more to the south compared to yesterday. So now we're looking at we're not going to be really talking about the marginal. If you're in the marginal, you have a really low risk for really seeing hail, tornadoes. You have a chance, is a 2% chance for tornadoes and a 5% chance for really wind and hail. But again, you're going to be on the very, very low side of all that severe weather impacts. So again, you might want to be on the lookout. You're still going to be seeing some very strong bands as well. Again, you're still going to be seeing, again, powerful bands as well, but these bands are very unlikely to have supercells and cause damaging winds and all that. And the slight chance, that's when we start to see that bit of a change. We're actually now getting a lot closer to that very strong severe weather. You can possibly have, of course, a bigger chance for hail, tornadoes, and winds than the marginal risk, of course. As good. So if you're in the level 2, you might want to watch out a little bit because there's a chance for tornadoes, and the slight chance is just a bit of a lower. But again, you're technically in the slight chance just because of the percentage of these things. Doesn't mean you can rule out the chance for seeing very strong bands. So if you're in the slight chance, you can possibly see tornadoes. Definitely, just again that the chance for is a bit low on the lower side. So that's why you're in a slight chance. But that's going to be for around, again, 25.5 million people. That's going to be now including Houston, Dallas, New Orleans, Atlanta, Georgia, and Arlington. And of course, now I'm in that slight chance as well. The enhanced risk, now we have around 10 or 9 million people. That's where we're possibly getting a lot closer to the worst of these bands and a lot closer and a lot higher of a risk now for tornadoes. Now, if you're in the enhanced risk, you're definitely seeing a very good chance for tornadoes and very strong tornadoes as well, up to an EF2 to EF5 within a 25-mile radius and across the whole enhanced risk, and very high risk for winds and damaging hail. So if you're in the enhanced risk, that's for Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Mobile, Tallahassee, and Savannah, Georgia. Again, Tallahassee, you guys are right on that border there. And now, of course, for the moderate risk, we now have up to 5 million people. Yesterday, we had 2.5 million people. And that's as it extends now into more into south central Georgia. So if you're in the moderate risk, you have the highest risk for tornadoes. Definitely possibly seeing a threat for EF3s to EF5s tornadoes again. Definitely extremely large hail, possibly golf-sized to softball-sized hail. And a very high risk for damaging winds, especially Georgia and Alabama. That's for, again, 5 million people, including Montgomery, Alabama, Columbus, Georgia, Jackson, Mississippi, Macon, Georgia, and Albany, Georgia. All these areas, again, really got, again, many of these cities in Georgia actually kind of avoided the worst of severe weather yet last time, except for Columbus. But again, look at this. Again, this tornado risk is now way out of the roost out here at a 15% chance. Again, this is, if you're in the red, you have the highest risk for a tornado today, and a 15% chance. I know it says 15% chance, but really 15% chance, in other words, means up to, again, a 40 to a 50% chance in real words, because it's very hard to guarantee a tornado. Not only guarantee a tornado, but guarantee the location. So it's basically saying like really a 40 to 50% chance, really. That's what it's saying. So don't just say, oh, 50% chance. That's incredibly low. Way lower than a 50% chance, which, trust me, guys, if you want a 15% chance, you really watch out. Especially, again, that's for 5 million people: Montgomery, Columbus, Jackson, Macon, and Albany. If you know anybody in these areas, like Alexandria, Monroe, Yazoo City, and Meridian, any of these cities that are in the red, please, you really should share the video to them. And then a 10% chance, that's also where you have a very high risk for tornadoes. That's like saying maybe a 30 to a 40% chance, in other words. Because we have tornadoes, guys, in the 2% chance. So if you're, imagine a 15% chance. So again, the 10% chance, we have also a very high chance for tornadoes. You may not have the highest risk, but you're definitely a very good risk. Because look how this, really the yellow color for the 10% chance is basically within 10 miles away from the red color around here, except for the Georgia, for Georgia and South Carolina. But look how this yellow is basically within 10 miles around that red. So think about that. And also, if you're in the 5% chance, you're like within a couple miles as well from that 15% chance. So now if you're in the 5% chance in areas in the south central, you also might want to watch out, because these tornadoes, we can have some long track tornadoes, which can possibly get out of the red risk and head towards the 5% chance or 10% chance. Because look how close these colors are together. I know it's not as close as here, but right here we have the 3 layers within 30 miles. Let us say they take 10 miles for each layer close to each other. So definitely that's also a really dangerous risk, as these layers are incredibly close to each other. So if you're in a 5% chance, you're doubting, oh, just 5% chance. And then you're like 20 miles away from the 50% chance. So that's where you have to watch out. Wind threat, again, very high. Like I said, really, especially Georgia and Alabama. The reason why we actually have that moderate risk actually extending is also because we have a 45% chance, the highest risk for damaging winds in these areas in Alabama and Georgia, which is really mainly the reason why we actually extended it as far east as Georgia, because it could have just stayed closer to the Georgia border, but it extended almost like 100 miles, if not more. So again, I'm actually getting that 15% chance for damaging winds. But really, the chance for really seeing incredibly, again, strong winds is going to be that 45% chance and 30% chance, where you can possibly see, again, 65 plus knots. Again, these areas, you can possibly see 70-mile-per-hour winds. So, again, the 30% chance, that's for those people with an enhanced risk. And we have that, again, once again, for around 10 million people, including New Baton Rouge, Shreveport, Mobile, Jackson, Tallahassee. So, if you're in the 30% chance, definitely expect to possibly lose power, if not your city or any areas around you to lose power from these strong straight line winds. And if you have rotation in a rotating supercell or spin up, that's where you expect these the debris to be all over the place, because it's rotation. The wind will be all over the place. But mainly the big threat is straight line winds. When these winds do come in one direction, that's going to be mainly where we have these winds coming in, the moisture coming from the Gulf. And then we'll have the wind shear threat, more like right here. That would possibly where we have that wind shear threat, but straight line wind is a threat out here in that pink. So in the pink, we have the highest risk for a damaging wind, which is, again, up to hurricane force winds. That's for around 3 million people, including Montgomery, Columbus, Macon, Albany, and Dothan, Alabama. And that's definitely, again, that threat for incredibly strong winds. And then the hail threat, actually, it's quite high out here in the south central, maintaining right here. So we're actually going to be looking at the hail hail tracker here on the European radar. Again, that's going to be for more of the Shreveport area, Baton Rouge, Mobile, Jackson, and Tyler area. Now we're going to be looking at storm reports today. Again, I know it does take them a while to actually get any tornado report, but usually when it comes to the first tornadoes of a day, they actually get that a lot faster because they have lots of data throughout the day. So as of right now, we have 0 tornado reports, but I think that could possibly change right here with that Georgia-Alabama border thing, because and we actually have 4 hail reports, mainly in Georgia, mainly in Texas and Alabama, and 2 wind reports in Alabama. So again, that's where we have that really strong band. Now we are going to be looking at the NAM3KM model here to show you exactly the timing and really the amount of energy in these bands. So again, here we have 2 low pressure systems. Again, we had a cold front earlier on here, out here. So this is why we are seeing the worst of the bands, the bullseye, really the tornado makers, supercell makers. All these bands will be developing later in the evening and afternoon, because this cold front was actually here throughout yesterday and early today, but it actually will be moving out. You can definitely be seeing a huge warm up within the next couple of hours temperatures. So once that cold front does leave later today, that's when we have all this humidity, moisture, all of that wind shear to be now developing right here. So we actually had this because of actually when that cold front was actually right here. It wasn't too cold in these areas because it barely even passed the areas, which is actually why we actually had these bands develop, especially at this strength. But again, look at these really strong bands. Again, I really think people are actually really underdoing these bands. I really think that's why we should have a enhanced risk move closer to Atlanta. Look at these very strong bands. Again, I'm getting that very heavy rain. Again, it really looks like we actually have a chance for supercells developing now. Early this morning, really did not look like it yesterday, but with this new radar change, this new update on the radar earlier today, it really looks like we could possibly have supercells here. It really, really does. Into the Georgia area, moving out near Augusta. Again, also going straight over Atlanta. And then by later this afternoon, again, we start to see these stronger bands now developing with a defined surface low. That's going to be creating some very strong but small bands that will actually be really powerful just from the start. Definitely going to be seeing some really strong cells in these systems. Again, now later today, around really closer to the overnight hours, we're going to start seeing these bands, or not the overnight hours, the evening hours. We're going to start seeing this, the rain that we're seeing right now in the southeast, now moving to the southern South Carolina area. But look at this, start to see these really bands developing at a fast rate. And again, definitely going to strengthen with the ton of moisture and the wind shear. Definitely create these storms a lot faster. Going to have that overday heating, of course, and then as this low pressure system does strengthen to 998 millibars, these bands will also strengthen. Again, definitely now see these little smaller cells that could possibly bring maybe pea-sized hail, some damaging winds as well. These little small cells, and then by later early in the morning, we're definitely starting to really see these strong bands, little cells out here into now moving to Texas or moving to Georgia and Alabama, and continue to see that severe weather threat now from Mississippi areas into north central Louisiana, where we're going to have that really big risk for tornadoes. And then by later on, definitely we see these little bands of little cells moving out towards southern Alabama. Also very small linear cells moving now into the Jackson, Mississippi area, Yazoo City, Meridian. That's where we have that threat again for tornadoes, and that's going to continue to bring in a really strong tornado threat and high wind threat throughout areas now to Georgia. These very strong linear lines and bands, and that's going to be now moving out into Monday, really late morning, early afternoon, moving out now into the Carolinas and all that. So now we're going to be looking at the surface, the forecast hail size. And this is going to be really detailed in the next couple of hours. So next hour, we actually might have some hail. Very good chance we're seeing some hail out here falling into the areas that are just west of Atlanta with that very strong band. We were looking at the National Weather Service. We can possibly see that 1/2 inch hail, which is not too necessarily big. Again, that's going to be really around like a quarter-sized hail, really being generous on that. But again, as you continue on the day, gonna start seeing that hail threat becoming a bit bigger. Not only the threat for it, but also the size of it will become a bit bigger. Possibly seeing 1 inch, 1.2 inch hail now out here into western Texas. Also seeing some smaller areas not far from Monroe, seeing around an inch hail So that's also a threat. But as we now get later in the next couple hours, seeing that threat becoming a bit bigger now into Mississippi, could possibly see 1.1 inch hail, and seeing some smaller sized hail, about half an inch out there to Alabama again. It could be a lot bigger, a bit more widespread, of course. But again, that main hail threat's going to be maintaining right here. So that's why you'll be seeing as widespread again. It's really hard to forecast where hail will be in the exact size. So that's why like you barely even see it. It might be a lot bigger of an outbreak of hail. Now we're going to begin the STP, which is significant tornado parameter. This is like a Torcon, like I've been saying in the past couple of videos, but it's not really. It's going to be measuring again the chance in the area with all the ingredients and all that to see a tornado, but it's not necessarily a Torcon when it actually gives you the percentage of a tornado. But again, the Torcon for the areas in the moderate risk actually have a 7, which means a 70% chance for tornadoes, which is very high. And then areas in the enhanced risk, we have a 5, and that's a 50-50 chance of seeing a tornado or not. And again, that's going to be within a 25-mile radius all over this enhanced moderate risk, which means there's going to be a really high risk for many areas. But as we get later today, the SCP risk is actually be a lot lower compared to yesterday. Again, really when it gets above a 5, that's we have a potential decent chance of possibly seeing some tornadoes developing here, significant tornadoes. And again, we're possibly be seeing around a 6 out here into western Texas, seeing it possibly again around a 5 to a 6 out here into Louisiana, where we have those very strong bands. Like I said, really low chance for seeing tornadoes with that band in Georgia and Alabama moving to the south into the Carolinas. And as we get now extending later into Monday morning, we'll possibly have it now around a 6 out here into southwestern Georgia, eastern Alabama, into areas of far northern panhandle of Florida. And again, these areas are actually under an enhanced risk, except for the panhandle, where we actually have a slight chance or an enhanced risk. And then we have up to a 6.5 on the SCP for areas in Louisiana. And then we have around a 5.8, so basically a 6 out here into the Columbus area in southwestern Georgia, and also another risk out here into the southern area of Mississippi. This, again, risk will get a bit higher, around a 6.4. This will be for the really strong bands moving to the Columbus area. Again, we have around a 4 to a 5 SCP risk around scattered areas into central Georgia. And then we'll possibly have a bit of a higher risk now, getting up to a 6.6, around a 7. And then possibly seeing this risk now to a 6.5, moving to the South Carolina area. So if you're in South Carolina, you also have a chance for seeing tornadoes, and that threat will be moving out by, again, Monday in the afternoon. Again, this isn't a Torcon. It's not necessarily saying the exact risk or the exact percentage to see a tornado. It's just compared to a bar showing you, oh, there's a risk, or showing you the risk of a tornado, not necessarily showing you the percentage. That's where we have a Torcon. This is like a Torcon, but again, it's also not a Torcon. It's really hard to explain what it actually is. Now we're looking at the SPC, which is Supercell Composite Parameter. So this can be measuring really the chance on this bar, showing you the numbers on this bar, really the chance of seeing a supercell development here. And these are actually still going to be quite high. It's going to be higher than yesterday, actually. So as we get later to today, we're going to be seeing this SCP threat really be coming really high. It's also going to be very widespread again, stretching all the way from eastern Texas to the eastern Georgia area. So for those people who don't really know, once you get to a 10 on the SCP, that's basically saying a decent chance for seeing supercell development, which causes large hail and strong tornadoes. But once you get past a 20, it's a very, very high risk for a tornado, like incredibly high risk for incredibly high risk for supercell development. So you definitely definitely really want to be watching out if you're above a 20 on the SCP at any moment, because that definitely means a transfer of spin-ups, if not rotations, and all that. But once you're above a 30, it's basically guaranteed you'll be seeing supercells, not only supercells, but possibly extremely strong supercells, so supercells. Again, here we have this risk again throughout today. We're going to have up to an 18.4. That's going to be throughout areas into Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi, and also eastern Texas. So again, that's already a really high risk, or a very decent high risk with the 18. But now as we continue today, up to a 21, which is definitely seeing a very high risk for seeing supercell development. Again, there's a very good chance, of course, we're going to be seeing some tornadoes out here into the southeastern part of Mississippi. That also supercell development. So definitely going to be seeing a lot of hail reports Again, we have that wind threat, that hail, and tornado report threat all into this area in southwestern, or sorry, southwestern Mississippi, not southeastern, southwestern Mississippi. Again, we have this a little bit of 12 to 16 on the SCP threat areas throughout central Louisiana and Texas. As we now get later into the day, look at this, a 33 basically on this SCP, which is right here. And look how high we are on that risk. That's basically saying a guaranteed chance for seeing some spin-ups, tornadoes, and supercell development in this area out here near the Jackson, Mississippi area. Also going to be seeing a very high risk around a 20 out here on the SCP for Louisiana. That's where we have that 32 in that pink, that really bright pink. That's really, really scary to actually see these high numbers. And as we continue on, this risk will get a bit on the lower side to a 17.5. But again, on the 17.5, that's still a very high risk. And that's going to be now moving again more into southern Mississippi, into eastern Louisiana, and we're starting to see that SCP threat for supercell development later on into the day. In the overnight hours, moving eastward into Georgia. That's where we'll possibly see up to again a 10 to a 14 on the SCP for Georgia in the early hours of these bands. But as we now get more into these strong bands, we see up to a 22 out here, and seeing again up to a 20 out here in scattered areas in southern Alabama near Montgomery. So also seeing a chance for supercells across all the way to Georgia. And this risk will actually get a lot higher as well into South Carolina out here, possibly seeing a 25. So also seeing a chance for these very strong bands to possibly create supercell development. And look at this, it's going to be seeing up to a 12 as far south as Florida. And then this risk will go a lot lower. Now we're going to be taking a look at the lightning. And I believe this means this number, this maximum, is the per minute, I think. I don't necessarily know. But based on what normal lightnings do, it shows you the amount of strikes per minute. So I think that's what it's going based off. It doesn't really say anything. But again, as you can tell, we're possibly seeing up to 61 strikes out here into Alabama, moving to Georgia with these strong bands. You can really see the formation of the band just by looking at the lightning strikes. Again, on the lower side, on this outskirts, possibly 1 to 4 strikes per minute. But right here, where we had that, again, potential supercell, again, it's not confirmed or anything, but we possibly see a supercell. That chance where we actually have the best chance for it, if we actually have one, we have to be 62 strikes per minute. As we now continue to go the next couple hours into the day, this is where we start to things get very interesting to eastern Texas, possibly seeing more than 100 strikes per minute throughout areas into the the eastern Texas area. Also going to be seeing the linear line of these bands. Then going to be seeing the formation throughout scattered areas that can possibly see more than 50 strikes per minute, if not more than 100 strikes per minute. As we now continue to move on, we're going to be seeing up to 118 strikes per minute. That's going to be now for the southwestern part of Louisiana, near the Houston area. We can of course, east of Houston. And then we also have these other scattered areas out here into the far eastern Texas area, because we actually have an enhanced risk in that far eastern part of Texas, which is why we're going to be seeing so many strikes. Again, this is just going to be going all the way from Texas to the Georgia area. Again, on the Georgia area, be a bit lighter on the lighter side, seeing scattered 15 to 30 strikes per minute. But as we go far to the west, seeing these strikes, more strikes per minute, because that's what we're seeing the worst of it. Continue to see, again, up to now 105 strikes per minute. That's going to be now out there into the Louisiana near Baton Rouge, heading to the New Orleans area. And then we have this really widespread. This is where we start to see these bands starting to connecting, doubling in size as it does now see a widespread area of 30 to possibly 70 strikes per minute. That will now be heading to the Georgia area, of course, in the overnight hours into the early morning hours. And then the threat for really a ton of lightning strikes will go down. But also seeing a pretty decent chance now for Florida. That's where we possibly have that maybe chance for a slight risk, and enhanced risk maybe moving a bit lower. That will possibly see up to 95 strikes per minute. And then seeing maybe 104 strikes per minute out here into Florida, moving to the Orlando area. So definitely a threat for really tomorrow. We have a pretty big threat for maybe some severe weather moving to the Florida area. Now we're going to be looking out here into the Cape Valleys, with, again, showing really the amount of energy out here in the atmosphere to create really strong bands of severe weather. We're going to be seeing some 4,000s out here into the southern areas of Mississippi in the next hour or so. Seeing these 3,000s again. Then we're going to be seeing all of this from the moisture out here into the Gulf. All this moisture will be spilling out because the cold front actually left. Also, be seeing the very high amount of energy now near Victoria, possibly seeing up to a 5,000, and also near just south of Jackson, Mississippi. We'll be seeing some really mid 4,000s to low 4,000s as we continue in the next couple hours. Seeing again things from 5,000s. That's a whole ton of energy into the Texas area again. Also, be seeing some scattered energy now into the Gulf Coast, seeing New Orleans at 3,000, Baton Rouge 3,200, West Gulfport 2,700, Houston going to see a whole ton of energy up to around the 4,000 areas, and the numbers do go down later today. So that's what we're looking at here. Okay, now we actually have tornado watches. Now that I just reloaded it, we have now tornado watches. So as you can tell now, we are starting to see these beginning bands starting to ramp up. Again, that's going to be now areas into now western Louisiana. We have Shreveport. Again, once again, Monroe, where we had that EF3 tornado. You guys are once again under a tornado watch, which you guys do not want to be in. We now have Lufkin, which was under a tornado watch. Tyler, Alexandria. So again, definitely now seeing these bands starting to strengthen. Now we actually have Houston as well, actually under a severe thunderstorm warning and tornado watch. Beaumont, Lake Charles, Bryan, not far from the College Station area near Waco. Also again, Lake Charles, Cameron, Overland, DeRuyter, Leesville, Jasper, Woodville, Beaumont, Port Arthur. We have now tornado watches, of course. Now, definitely seeing these bands starting to develop. We're going to be seeing, from this point on, we're going to be seeing tornado watches moving eastward. You're not really going to be seeing these disappear whatsoever. You're going to continue to see now these tornado watches moving now eastward. And this is now where you see the severe weather is definitely starting now. I know we saw these very strong winds in Georgia and all that, but that's not really the strongest severe weather really threat. It's going to be right here. So this is now the beginning of this severe weather. As you can tell, it's not really anything major as of right now. We're going to be seeing these bands, again, starting to strengthen. As you can tell, you're seeing them getting bigger and bigger. As you can tell, these bands will start getting a lot bigger. And it's almost guaranteed that these will have supercells. So that's why they had tornado watches as far east as Monroe when it's all the way over here. So that's crazy how it's basically almost a guaranteed that there will be tornadoes in these areas and supercells because the Monroe's, again, like what, right here, Monroe's right here. And look at these bands, they're like a couple 100 miles away, if not maybe 200 miles away, something like that. And that's crazy again. Definitely, again, as you can tell, these really strong bands in Georgia and Alabama. Looks like that supercell threat still a chance for the border of Georgia and all that. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, this is definitely a long video, and I have maybe one or maybe in between 2 to 3 left to come. Bye.